right now we have the Pegatron Migo tablets that VTab, XPC, that's what that was the head of today. I know that 7-inch tablets aren't off the market. That the Migo UI is completely scalable down to 7 inches. We fully expect to be ready for that. But like, you need the hardware interest to attract the developers to want to come into AppLab. Right. So like, how do you see that happening, or who do you see coming in? And like, give me something.
Sure. Yeah. No. I mean, so yeah. So I'm gonna let's this is gonna be let's think about the strategic. Okay. So one of the things we've heard, and this term we've used, and actually interestingly, Nokia in some of their public statements have referenced the same concept, although they don't use the same language, of what we call the third alternative. And this was language that was introduced to us as a metaphor by telcos. Some of the all the world's biggest telcos now use it. So when they said, again, I'm not putting words in their mouth, but what we hear and what we can talk about when they talk about a third alternative is they want something that isn't Apple and isn't Google as a third alternative. And when you look at Apple and Google, and you would then need to go, okay, well, and by the way, we've heard this from not just telcos, we've also heard it loud and clear from the OEM community, and we've heard it loud and clear from the retail community. So when you look at the business, the devices business, if they're saying we need a third alternative, and they're not identifying Microsoft as filling that role already, we can carve them out for a second. We can say, okay, so let's say that there is a desire for a third alternative, and it doesn't currently exist yet. We got to look to the existing first and second alternatives, right, to say what would the third need to be. So we have iOS, right? Great operating system. I have an iPhone. I can go on my rant about iTunes yet again, but I think we've done that before.
Yes.
You can look it up on our videos about how much I love iTunes. But
a stick in the eye.
Yeah, I think it was a chopstick.
Yeah, would be more fun.
Correct. Yes. Correct. But so if you look at iOS and you look at what Apple does extraordinarily well, is they build an extraordinarily effective walled garden to A, delight end users, which is their primary focus, and B, to have an extraordinarily high degree of control over that walled garden, which is why they've made public statements trashing, Adobe Flash, among other reasons. So you've got the walled garden. If you look then, and their business model, they make very good margins on hardware. They don't really have a revenue on services. They bought that, the ad company, right? But and there's some spike there, but they're still not yet a services company. They're not really a social media company. They're a media company with iTunes. You look to Google and you say, okay, Google with Android, what's their business model? Why have they been successful? They've been open enough because. If you look at true open source, I don't know if did you see the spike on Twitter about the back and forth with Andy, and then people dinging Andy Rubin ahead of Android because he said Android's open, and then other people said, well, where's the check-in? Where can I check into the current version of Android that you guys are working on? You can't. Right? So it's sufficiently open to make the devices community comfortable that they can take, the latest release, Honeycomb, whatever, and ship it and be successful in a way that that Apple won't let them. But if you look at the Google business model, 97% of Google's revenue comes from paid search and advertising. That hasn't changed. They're clearly, thus, a services company. They're sort of everything in that regard that Apple isn't, Google is. Certainly, I think inarguably the reason that Android exists is because of that. So, what would the third alternative need to be? Well, first of all, actually open. Like, if somebody does a really good, really innovative thing in the Migo kernel, and they want to check it in tomorrow, they can. And that's the current version. Right? So truly open is always nice as an alternative to proprietary.